ready? Here we go. Navigate to Sleepy Hollow, New York. You wake up well before the sunrise and you begin to drive north. And as the light appears, you get a sense that you're not only traveling the country, but traveling through time. 12 hours away from home, the trees begin to tell you that you've left the end of a sticky Kentucky summer and entered a beautiful New England fall. As the Midwest landscape and modern sprawl are left for the hamlets and hollows of the Hudson River Valley, you get a feeling that in New England, autumn is antique and harkens to a fall from long ago.
It is a sleepy little hollow, isn't it? There's an old thing up there.
We got into Sleepy Hollow pretty late, so I dropped Courtney and the dogs off at the beautiful Hampton Inn to relax after a full day in the car, and I went out to Sleepy Hollow's main street, Beekman Street, to bring back some food and honestly find a nice place for a beer after a full day in the car. Sleepy Hollow on a Saturday night was anything but sleepy. The Halloween streets were bustling with locals, families, and tourists, all out enjoying the beautiful evening and the charming atmosphere. I popped into the Beekman Ale House, which came highly rated as a place to soak up some local flavor, as well as some local beer, and it did not disappoint. Despite a very big crowd, I popped into a spot at the bar, enjoyed a great IPA, or two, from Hill Farmstead. This place has been around since about 2021, but the building goes back to at least the early 19th century and has been beautifully preserved. The food was excellent, took the pizza back to the hotel, and enjoyed it with some quality veg-out television as we got ready for our next day of fully exploring this historic and storied valley. Come on, don't be afraid. Thank you. Eat your breakfast. The next day, we got a leisurely start and set off to explore properly the townships of Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown that are set right together on the Hudson River about 30 miles outside of New York City and have roots along with the rest of the Hudson Valley all the way back to colonial American times. We started the day exploring the historic main streets and then popped into the Muddy Waters Cafe, which I would definitely recommend. The coffee, the food, the pastries were all fantastic. But what made this place feel unique, I think, is the same thing that makes all of Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown so charming. Walking through these streets of independent businesses housed in exceptionally well cared for and old buildings with no sloppy-paced chain stores or neon tourist traps in sight, you feel like you're part of a special community and somewhat separated from the onslaught of modernity in a community that really takes care of itself and preserves its links to that idealized vision of our past. Thank you. Yeah, while we're here, I would like to take this moment to thank the 3 honest militiamen who captured that scoundrel, John Andre, from stealing the plans for West Point from the absolute worst piece of trash, Benedict Arnold. Before America had an identity to idealize, before it was even a country, history was still happening, of course, in the Hudson Valley. Today, the Philipsburg Manor complex is a living history museum that not only strives but excels at giving you a glimpse of what life was like for all the peoples who found themselves calling the Hudson Valley home in the colonial time period. The historical interpreters at Philipsburg are exceptional, and this whole site is a beautiful and vibrant window into what it would have been like to live and to work and to die here those hundreds of years ago. We spent the morning exploring all of the grounds and, of course, exited through the gift shop, and then made our way to DeChico & Sons to check out what I'd been told was one of the best beer caves in the region. This is a family-owned grocery chain that only has a handful of locations in and around New York, and I was so impressed with the quality of everything that they had to offer, not to mention the quantity. Holy cow, the quantity of great beer. They also have an awesome draft list in their rooftop bar and a staff after my own heart.
You want to do a shot of the Underberg?
We only had time for a quick one, so I grabbed a Fodor-aged Martzen from New York's Drowned Lands Brewery. You said I could have one beer?
Yeah.
It was fantastic. They also had the Timbo Pils on tap, but alas, very good. We had a schedule to keep. Because, of course, you can't visit Sleepy Hollow without paying a visit to one of its most infamous inhabitants. Along with all the colonists and colonizers that came to inhabit this new world, also came their legends and their folklore from the old. European folklore abounds with traditions of ghastly or sometimes godly, mounted, often headless riders. In the Hudson Valley, these archetypal shadows were cast onto the local and likely real legend of a Hessian soldier that lost his head to a cannonball during the War for Independence and now haunted, indeed still haunts, the region, preying on lone travelers, particularly on the roads near the cemetery of the old Dutch church. Another traveler of these colonial and then suddenly American township roads was a young would-be rider who loved nothing more than escaping the burgeoning borough of Manhattan a day's ride to the south to explore these forgotten hollows, as well as all the inns that he could along the way, where he absorbed all of these old travelers' tales, and which he would eventually weave into a literary tapestry that was, just like his young country, something entirely new. Sunnyside is the home to that great and arguably first American writer, Washington Irving. Built on the banks of the Hudson River in the very same valley that he traveled as a youth, Sunnyside was Irving's final refuge, his place to slip away from modernity and to write his tales in peace, and by his last years create a corpus that would prove a scaffold for all of the great American literature that would follow. It is sad to report that in the last years of his life, a portion of his refuge was seized by the state to make way for the New York Railroad. My favorite element in Irving's work was his homage, especially in Rip Van Winkle, to the central nature of the community inn or tavern or pub, to maintaining a healthy and connected local culture. And even while Rip Van Winkle began to see this institution's decline after his 20-year nap, I don't think the stream is inevitably lost. In fact, I think you can still find it in droves at any good local brewery. So, we drove about 20 minutes out of town to a brewery that had been recommended to me by almost every local beer nerd that I had talked to thus far. Captain Lawrence began brewing in 2006 and has since become one of the area's largest breweries. They make around 28,000 barrels a year. It's very nice. They also make some in-house distilled spirits. They offer a huge selection of beer, but I went with my usual, asked for the bartender's current favorite hoppy and their favorite classic lager. We're Captain Lawrence Brewing out in their beer garden. Very busy on a nice Sunday here on the outskirts of Sleepy Hollow. Go figure, this is the place to be. We've got our well-earned Pilsner and our Hop Commander American Pale Ale, recommended by the bartender. Well, excellent, and a really cool place to drink beer. Aside from the awesome beer and the awesome staff, the thing that really stuck with me was seeing this giant beer garden filled with its community being used exactly the way a giant beer garden should. We spent a little bit of time just exploring the outskirts of Sleepy Hollow, absolutely beautiful landscape, and then headed back into town for something to eat. This guy's looking. For some reason, the extreme Halloweenification does work really well in Sleepy Hollow, although I do question some of the placement. For dinner, we decided that we had to try a Sleepy Hollow staple. You'll see this place recommended in almost every guide that you see about the city, but it had also been recommended as a great spot for a beer. Horse Feathers is what I would call an old-school gastropub. It opened up in 1981 and has since been a fixture of the community, serving really good pub food and a huge variety of local and regional craft beer. Everything that I tried here was next level good. We ordered a bunch of food, a bunch of beers. I had one of the biggest, best dad burgers of my life, and then settled in to prepare for our next day. The next day was back to an early start as we left New York and made our way slowly along the Connecticut coast, stopping to check out every historic lighthouse and seaside village that we could find until we finally arrived at our next destination in Mystic, Connecticut. For most of its history, Mystic was a bustling seaport town and one of the region's premier shipyards. Today, Mystic is a quintessential seaside town, complete with vintage drawbridge, charming Main Street, a good bit of old-fashioned Americana, but just a bit off the beaten path. We found a place that's been a watering hole for the Mystic locals since the city's shipbuilding days. We're down in the
what would you call this? The cellar? First floor tap room of the Daniel Packard Inn, which was built in 1756 by the Packard family. It passed down through the generations and then was converted into the modern day inn and pub in the 1980s, and ends on to all that history. We got nice Lawson's here, nice ship during and tap over there. I'm going to try that next. And fish and chips and a falafel wrap up play.
We took some time to explore Connecticut's coastal woodlands and then headed up the Mystic River to check out one of the places on our whole trip that we were the most excited to visit. The Mystic Seaport Museum was created in 1929 when Mary Stillman Harkness donated 19 acres of land purchased by her grandfather, a prominent local shipbuilder, to create one of America's first living history museums, dedicated to preserving the traditions and the history of the shipbuilding arts, craftsmanship, and industry that had been so crucial since our country's founding, but by the turn of the 20th century had already started to quickly become lost to time. Today, the museum is a collection of innumerable arts and artifacts, as well as over 60 structures, the vast majority of which are unique commercial or industrial buildings that have been saved from deterioration or demolition by the museum's trust and relocated to the site to give the over 250,000 annual visitors a chance to peek back in time through this one-of-a-kind window into the past. I don't know exactly what it is about museums on the temperance movement. They always leave me thirsty. Luckily, the Mystic Seaport Museum has you covered there, too. Mystic Seaport Museum, well worth the price of entry. If only there was a place where you could get a beer while you're here. Oh, there is. Whalers is in Rhode Island. They are known to have one of the best APAs in the country. I've actually never had it before. It's a spot. One of the things I enjoy the most about exploring new areas of the country is discovering new regional favorite beers. I assumed here along the Connecticut coast that would be Narragansett, which people do drink plenty of, but I was very pleasantly surprised to find this Whalers beer everywhere. I think I'd have to describe it as the coastal Connecticut and Rhode Island beer. The only thing I regret is not buying a little bit to bring home. We spent the rest of the afternoon exploring this incredible museum. If you're anywhere in the region, I'd say it's a must visit. And one of my favorite parts, since I think the 1970s, the team has been working on a scale model of the entire town from around 1850 to 1860. It is really, really cool, especially if, like me, you're a sucker for a good diorama. Just north of the Mystic Seaport Museum, you'll find the B.F. Clyde Cider Mill, a historic and quintessential New England experience, if I may say. The cider they make is good, but it's really more of an apple wine. So if you're looking for something cold, carbonated, and light and refreshing, it's probably not this. But if you do like apple wine, highly recommend. Also, if you have a sweet tooth, they do have a huge menu of really sweet frozen apple drinks with alcohol that are all pretty good. We went over the whatever body of water that was, and we're now in New London, Connecticut at Talks Brewing. There's a couple good breweries around this little area, not so much in Mystic, but if you just hop 10 minutes outside of town, there's quite a few. This one came very highly recommended. I got their Farm Party, an experimental IPA with, I think, some New Zealand hops. Fantastic. It's a New England IPA. Go figure. Not to mention just the beer, the pizzas at Talks and all the other food looked absolutely incredible. This place is clearly an important staple of its community. If you're anywhere in New London, Mystic, or the surrounding regions, I would definitely recommend paying Talks a visit. Is it kitschy? Yes, but not aggressively kitschy. I don't hate it that much. And there is some good food and some good beer to be had. So one of the strangest places that we visited had to be the Old Mystic Village, back towards Mystic, Connecticut. This is a collection of somewhat antique buildings that have now been repurposed into something of a kitschy outdoor shopping mall meets... I don't know. It's hard to describe. But if you're going to have a kitschy outdoor shopping mall, it is nice, as I've said before, that all these places do seem to be independently owned. And we did find a great place to grab dinner. at Pink Basil, an independently owned restaurant right in the heart of Old Mystic Village. They had an awesome beer lineup. As I mentioned before, the Whalers was on draft, and I did take full advantage of that. The food was actually really solid. They didn't skimp on the spice, which I appreciate. Also in the Old Mystic Village, a must-visit for any beer lover, Jealous Monk is a Hofbräu-style beer hall with a huge indoor space and an even bigger outdoor patio, a huge lineup of fantastic drafts, and just really a nice place to come and hang out if you do happen to be in this neck of the woods. Got a quick one here before finally calling it a night. We had a number of incredible drives on our trip, but the drive up Route 1 along the Connecticut coast was absolutely one of the most scenic, and crossing over the Narragansett Bay into Rhode Island is absolutely stunning. Apparently, we were there on one of the windiest days of the season.
Crazy waves.
So windy, in fact, that our schooner tour got scrubbed, but Newport made up for it with an absolutely incredible display of waves as we explored Brenton Point State Park on the very southern point of Aquidneck Island. The waves were incredibly dramatic and left us feeling like we were standing on the edge of the world. We made our way back into Newport to try out a local coffee shop that immediately became one of our favorites of our entire trip. Yes, thank you. Sorry. I'm no stranger to nitro coffee or to nitrogenized beer. This is one of the best ones I've ever had. The chocolatiness of the beans come out in a crazy way. I would love to see what these people could do with a stout. Properly caffeinated, we headed back across the island to take in the famous scenes along Newport's Cliff Walk. Again, thanks to the crazy winds, we did find the breakers to be very aptly named. We spent the afternoon exploring and then headed over to Newport's main streets, an incredibly well-preserved and beautifully presented historic district, including the very historic White Horse Tavern, which sadly wasn't open. But just across the street, we found a place for a beer that was exactly my speed. Walking around Newport, it's very, very cool. Lots of historic buildings, lots of interesting shopping districts and small businesses. Heard really good things about the beer list at Poor Judgment and the bar. Couldn't feel more at home. Awesome beer list, really nice people. Scheidezahn, I hope I pronounced that right, out of Rhode Island. This is their Buffalo Check Pilsner, my favorite style. Fantastic. Poor Judgment felt so nostalgic, and it could not have reminded me more of some of my favorite low-key bars from back home. Had another quick one, and we also did pick up a tip while here of another unique spot not too far to the north from Newport that we felt like we just had to go and check out. With traffic, about 20 to 30 minutes outside of Newport, we did a little asking, a little Googling, and we found the Ragged Island, which I suppose is the nickname for Rhode Island here, kind of farmstead brewery. Really, really nice place. We got their Vienna Lager and the IPA recommended by the bartender as a good hoppy option. This place is really freaking cool. We'll show you guys. There's a greenhouse, dog-friendly, lots of stuff going on. They're carrying around kegs with the tractor, which I appreciate. So we also drove by like 3 or 4 different breweries to get here. So no shortage of good beer in the great Ocean State. That's very nice. That's actually really good too. As I mentioned, Ragged Island, with their giant outdoor space, very dog-friendly. We invited ours to come with us. Sorry we woke you. But they were more interested in taking a nap. We headed back into Newport to take a walk along the pier. I should have filmed way more there. It's beautiful. And get something for dinner. We just randomly walked into the Clark Cookhouse. I had my last Whalers of this trip, which I kind of regret. But we also had some of the best food of our entire trip. I had a steak and frites that was awesome. Some heirloom tomatoes with a house-made balsamic. The staff, the food, good reasons to come. But the best reason, that sunset. Come on. The story of the Plymouth colony and the Mayflower and its pilgrims are so deeply central to our concept of America that I think it's fair to say that if America does have an evolving mythology, this is one of our creation stories. I've always been enamored of the American colonial and revolutionary period, so in some strange way, our journey over the next few days, walking the sites where these stories unfolded, almost felt like a pilgrimage to me, too. We started by exploring downtown Plymouth, a really charming downtown. We went into this little cafe that happened to also have a great beer fridge and an awesome homemade tuna salad before wandering down to explore the Plymouth Landing. You do sometimes hear people poo-poo the Plymouth Rock. You hear it all hyped up, and then you get there and it's like, oh, it's just a rock. But this whole park is actually really nice and cool. The Pilgrim Memorial Park remembers all of those long past people who were the actors in the events that we read about in history books. It's also the home to the Mayflower II, a completely faithful copy of the famous ship that bore 130 pilgrims and crew in startlingly close quarters. Seriously, I had a vision of the Mayflower in my head. But standing in the hold, which was much smaller and tighter than a standard double-wide trailer, and housed 130 people and their livestock for 2 months, honestly gave me a sense of dread, but equally awe for the faith and the vision that these pilgrims must have carried to endure the passage, and then to go on and build a home in the wilderness of the New World. A home that you can also experience at the sister site of the Plimoth Patuxet Park, where preservationists and historians have recreated the Pilgrims' 17th century colony, as well as a dwelling of the native Patuxet people. This is another site that I cannot recommend highly enough as a way to experience a little bit of what life would have been like for these people so long ago, at the beginning of what would become a rapidly changing world. Traffic's not that bad in Boston. That's what we're talking about. It's easy. All right, so we did make it into Boston, checked into our hotel, and then walked out onto the Boston Commons. Across the Boston Commons, they have their Esplanade. I hope I said that right. It's basically a big area of land that they built up to be able to build more housing on in, I believe, the mid-1800s. But now it's also home to the Night Shift Brewing beer garden out here. So just in the middle of the park, you wander into this really, really nice little beer garden. They got pizza, people just here hanging out, enjoying the nice sunset. And this is the second or third Night Shift beer I've had on this trip so far. Very, very good. This is their IPA. We had a few more beers and dinner down on the Esplanade, and as the sunset began to wander back through Boston's sleepy historic streets for some well-needed rest before setting out to fully explore historic Boston tomorrow. It's hard to describe the feeling of walking downtown Boston. Below the towering 21st century skyline, you somehow still feel like you're really hearing the echoes of the revolutionary city. Most of this, I believe, must be attributed to the generations of Boston's historic societies and city planners who, unlike in so many other industrial cities, somehow saw the value of retaining as many of these incredible historic sites as they could that are easily accessible today while exploring Boston's Freedom Trail.
See, in Boston, when you're smart, we say you're smart. And when you're very smart, you're wicked smart.
For a first-hand look at so many of the pivotal places in our revolutionary story. Thank you.
All right, that's your Dragon Brew.
All right, so we have made our way up through the North End, and in this park, there's a couple of really cool old pubs. We just walked through the Bell in Hand, through a little Diagon Alley-looking area to get to the Green Dragon Pub, which is also one of the really old Boston pubs. I think it's been closed and reopened since the revolutionary times, but this building is where the Sons of Liberty would have their secret meetings to plan and plot to overthrow the British Crown. Today, they have a couple beers that are made special for this place. We've got the Dragon Brew, which is their always-on lager, and then we've got their Dragon Seasonal. So I obviously got one of each. Dragon Seasonal Porter. This smells really good. I tried Googling and couldn't find it. Asked the bartender. Apparently, these are specially made for the Green Dragon by Narragansett. Thought the lager tasted a little familiar. Despite being a little bit of a touristy location, I absolutely loved the Green Dragon. If you're a fan of revolutionary history or just in the mood for a good beer, I think it's a must. We explored more in the old North End and a true taste of Boston, if I may say. And speaking of a taste of Boston, I could not leave without popping into one more Boston staple. The original Sam Adams is a little bit further south in Jamaica Plain, but the old North End location is fantastic with a full brewery, a great staff.
Thank you, sir. My name's Jackson. I'll put it like you said.
With one of the best views to enjoy this famous Boston brew.
I like doing tourist things. So while you're in Boston, we did have to get one Boston lager. I'm going to do a really detailed tasting notes analysis. Sam Adams, Boston lager. You will have Boston lager. You get one when you're here.
Does Boston lager taste better in Boston? You know what? Yeah, I think it does, but only because it does what all these great sites in Boston do. Further immerse you in the places and the events which defined the first chapter of our American history, and eventually led to the shot heard round the world. My only regret is that I did not get more footage of our time in Lexington and Concord. There is so much history to absorb here. Both of these small towns are absolutely charming. We both agreed that on another trip to this area, this is one of the places we would definitely want to spend more time. There is a trolley tour that you can book through the Lexington Visitor Center that is can't skip, in my opinion. You'll see every historic site, experiencing the story as it unfolded. If you're lucky, like we were, your tour guide will be the sweetest, sassiest old Boston lady that you can imagine. There's so much more to do here. We also checked out the Louisa May Alcott House and the Old Manse, home to Emerson and Hawthorne. There are a few, but honestly not a ton of places for a good beer around here. It's just not that kind of town. But I did hear that the Colonial Inn, located right on Concord's Monument Square, had a great old-time tavern and brewed a special historic beer with the nearby Wachusett Brewery. Their 1716 Country Ale is named for the year of the inn's establishment, and the beer is made to honor the old classic English pub ale. Think Boddington's. It went perfectly with some Yankee pot roast and the view overlooking the square of this incredibly special and historic American town.
Well, if you're in New England in October, I think today's October the 5th, you have to come through Salem, Massachusetts. We'll see what there is to see. I'm a little intimidated that this is going to be like Disneyland for young adults and old adults who really love Halloween stuff, but maybe it'll be charming. I've heard there's a few good places to get beers around here. We'll see what we can find.
Salem, Massachusetts is one of the most unique towns that I've ever visited. On the one hand, whatever else it may be, Salem is very beautiful. The preservation, the care, and the landscaping, and the overall cohesion and charm of the city as a whole belie any random beer nerds' cynical expectations of a tourist town capitalizing on the occult.
I think it's going to be kind of a wild day.
However, Salem is definitely different. This place is absolutely a mecca for those with a taste for the esoteric or an intuition for a good Instagram, says the guy walking around filming himself.
If you are a witchy girl or have a witchy girl in your life, this is the place to take them or to be.
But it is also so much more.
There is a lot going on in downtown Salem, and although it's not all exactly my speed, I do think it's cool that these are all local independent businesses. I haven't seen one chain or any kind of just off-the-shelf kitsch like you might see in other touristy towns. So yeah, the fact that this is all kind of local independent craftsmen, artists, and businesses, pretty cool. I think I'm ready for a beer.
But first, gentle viewer, I shall leave you with a few sights and sounds from Main Street, Salem.
Single and free!
And a couple bonus, great Salem beer bars that I unfortunately did not have time to film. Despite the craziness of the main drag, it's well worth remembering that if you walk just a block in any direction, Salem again quickly becomes a quintessentially charming and peaceful New England town with a ton of unique establishments and history on offer. On our way out of town, we also checked out another great little brewery just off the main drag. Pro tip, it's also by some very easy public parking. The guys who run the East Regiment Beer Company were incredibly welcoming, and this was the perfect place to sit down for a beer and recuperate before pushing on with the next leg of our journey, which would take us further up the New England coast, all the way north. You'll stop believing me if I say too much about every long drive that we took on this trip, so I will just say that if you decide to spend the day driving through the small towns of coastal Maine, you're going to have a good time. We ended up outside of Freeport and decided to check out a little satellite brewery that was nearby and open. And holy cow, Brickyard Hollow, opened in Yarmouth, Maine in 2018, now has 10 locations up and down the coast. Beer, spot on. I really like their Prattsbrook Pills. Food was fantastic and just what we needed to carbo load before the next morning's hike along Maine's magnificent coastline. Wolf's Neck State Park sits on 230 acres of donated land along the Casco Bay, about 15 miles north of Portland, and it's one of the most peaceful and scenic state parks that I have ever visited. There are miles of trails to wander, which will take you from the woodlands right down to the clear and rocky shoreline. I knew that Maine was known for its pristine and rugged beauty, but walking through it on such a beautiful fall day was something else entirely.
We have made it downtown Portland, Maine. Portland is really, really cool. It's a much bigger city than I was anticipating. And I will say, driving these little coastal routes through the smaller towns outside of Portland along the coast in Maine, there's breweries everywhere. So there's not a chance I'm going to be able to try them all, but there's 3 or 4 that look good on the way in. Maybe we'll try those this evening. Currently, exploring some shopping and stuff downtown. I did hear of an excellent place back here with a really, really good beer lineup, and somebody said some of the best lobster rolls around.
I think one of the signs that you've wandered into a great local bar is when more than one of the locals pop in on their breaks from the nearby boat tours and Main Street shops for the infamous industry quick beer and a shot. The King's Head had a truly great beer lineup, a very relaxed atmosphere, a staff that made us feel right at home, and oh yeah, the food. I'm not a lobster roll expert, but I think this lobster roll was top notch. If I lived in Portland, there's a very good chance the King's Head would be my place for a lunch beer and a shot, too. Portland is a big city that we did not get to explore enough of to give a proper report here. But the historic districts near the port and the main street are very cool and boast some very impressive and well-preserved turn-of-the-century architecture. But the jewel of Portland has to be its harbors and its shores, and to properly experience that, we finally got our schooner cruise. The Timberwind is a vessel berthed in 1931, and after a long life as a pilot ship, kind of a harbor taxicab, she now enjoys retirement as a nationally recognized historic vessel while still offering Sunset Bay cruises under the care of the Portland Schooner Company. This windblown sail across the bay was unforgettable, and the moderate price tag was tempered by the fact that it's BYOB. If you're into bourbon, I would start in Louisville. Yeah. After a windswept evening on the water, I think what we both needed was some good comfort food and some great beer, both of which we found in droves at Good Fire Brewing.
Awesome, thank you. Well, we've clearly hit peak dinner time here, but the beer is really good. This is a Big Secret IPA. Very, very nice.
I don't know what kind of sauce these guys are making to put on their smash burgers, but it was one of the best smash burgers I've ever had. I'll just continue to be hyperbolic here. I'd come back 100 times again, but it'll have to wait until our next trip, as this was our final night in Maine.
We are leaving Maine, taking the scenic route today. A lot of driving on the KANCAMAGUS highway. Unfortunately, that means there will not be much beer until we reach our final destination. But when we do, there's going to be some good beer waiting for us. Right, Frankie? Okay.
The drive through Maine and into New Hampshire was every bit as delightful as we've come to expect these cross-country New England routes to be. And just outside of Conway, New Hampshire, we randomly stopped at a place that will now forever hold a strange and special place in my heart. Inside the modest facade of discount beverages plus cigarettes, you will find a truly insane amount of packaged beer, both national and heavily regional. I definitely recommend you check it out, but that is not why we're here. Just next door is one of the most delicious things I've ever had the pleasure of putting in my mouth, the Maple Queenie. At Big Dave's Bagels and Deli is as flaky and tender as the best croissant, but between each bite, a thin layer of crisp maple sugar. I can't describe it. I would drive back to New Hampshire just for this thing. I think about it a lot. In fact, we grabbed a couple of these for the road and made our way onto New Hampshire's famous KANCAMAGUS Highway. The Kank is a 30-mile stretch of Route 112 that traverses the White Mountains of New Hampshire between Conway and Lincoln. It was an absolute pleasure to drive through this fall foliage. We could have spent days exploring here, but we had to press on and leave behind the dramatic cliffs of the Granite State for the rolling hills of Vermont's Green Mountains. As excited as I was to try some famous Vermont beer, the first thing on our list was to check out the cider. And I'm so glad that we did. Cold Hollow Cider Mill is a fully functional cidery and so much more. Not only do they press some of the most delicious apple juice that I've ever had,
Jump the line! You're gonna let him do that?
they also have a vast general store brimming with Vermont products and a sort of concession stand where you can get the most delicious maple creamies, maple crushies, look that up, cider drinks, and most importantly, hot, fresh cider donuts.
Creamy with maple sugar bites.
A maple crushie is so good it's almost indescribable, but a standout for me as well was the incredible hard cider. I'm excited. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Rarely do flights, but since there's so many good ciders here, and we have so much to try, I figured this is a good opportunity for it. We've got their semi-dry cider, their Citra hop cider, hibiscus ginger, and Paloma spritz, which sounds very, very interesting. Yeah, that's so good. It's hard to get sparkling ciders right. This is excellent. I'm not going to do tasting notes on them. Come down and try them yourself, but they are fantastic. Also, crushy. Holy cow. Okay, I said I wouldn't do tasting notes, but the Paloma cider, holy cow, that is really good. Super, super, super bright, grapefruit zest. A little bit of that lime coming through, but the agave and the apple, fantastic. This is really good. I might have to go back for a whole pint.
We paid the ice cream tax, despite what these guys might tell you, and then made our way into STOWE. If Boston felt like a pilgrimage to my inner history nerd, to my inner beer nerd, STOWE felt like a homecoming, and it started here at Idle Time. Walking into Idle Time feels like walking through 100 years of history. This site, since the 1900s, has been a community public house in various forms. But across the changing decades, instead of simply slapping a coat of paint over what came before, each iteration of this historic space has built upon the past, creating the top-notch brewery, restaurant, and community space that is Idle Time today. I grabbed the house pills, fantastic, and we were running purely on Queenies and Creamies, so we went ham on the menu. The food, exceptional. As was the Sky Splitter Double IPA. I actually think I can recommend all of the beer that Idle Time has to offer. And on a nice day, a great place to enjoy them, too.
And we did happen to have a rainy day here, but they also have a beautiful outdoor beer garden. I'll show you around. So, a little rainy for it today, but if you're here on a nice autumn day, or honestly any day, they have bonfire pits over there too. It's a little cool out. Excellent beer garden to come hang out. Excellent beer.
So you stay at the Fawn Trap for like a month. Or let's just ask if I can teach beer classes there. Hey, learn Austrian brewing techniques with world famous homebrewer. Oh, look!
I swear, even for the most hubristic among us, every time you spot the iconic silhouette of STOWE, it feels magical. We made the short drive to our motel, but I did notice a little brewery right across the street, so I figured I should at least go check it out.
Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I will not attempt, nor would I be able, to describe The Alchemist in full. I'll just tell you why I love it. Long before NEPA had a name, John and Jen Kimmich were brewing hazy, soft, impossibly fragrant beers, but their focus was never on trends. It was on flavor and balance and expression. While the masses have done much to refine the haze-crazed beer, Alchemist defined it.
So we'll be back here tomorrow for sure to get some cans to go, but I had to come in at least once on the way in. Hand-pulled heady topper. It's so good. It's so good.
For my money, hand-pulled heady, and the only place you can get it, from the single hand-pulled pump in this tap room, is the best craft beer in the world. It's hard to imagine a more Vermont scene than the mountain valleys of Stowe the morning after an autumn rainstorm. As the sun lifted the fog, we were greeted by a beautiful day and decided to stretch our legs along the Stowe Recreation Path and then finally explore this picturesque town from up close.
We're going to check out downtown Stowe. It's very, very cool for having driven through it. Small town, ski town in the winter, but bustling with little cafes, shops, and got a couple places for beer on the list today, but maybe we'll find a few surprises while we're walking around.
Stowe was chartered in the late 1700s, primarily as a logging settlement, but 100 years later, visitors from the increasingly congested coastal cities started traveling north for the clean air and mountain views, giving rise to the town's first inns and budding tourism trade. By the 1930s, the pioneers of a new sport called skiing noticed the region's alluring curves and helped transform Stowe into one of America's first recreation towns. Today, it is a blend of old Vermont charm, an economy of robust independent businesses, and a connected community that create a town that feels all at once timeless and modern and welcoming. And nowhere is this on better display than at the Stowe Public House. Located right along the main street, this is the perfect place to stop in for a pint or to peruse their very impressive bottle shop for some beer to take with you while exploring. It's easy to see why so many of the visitors to Stowe fall in love with the place. It happened to us, and it also happened to a family of traveling Austrian singers in the 1940s. The Von Trapp family, yes, the same one portrayed in The Sound of Music, came through Stowe on their American tour and immediately felt that these hills were also alive. I'm not going to sing it. In the same way as the hills they left behind in Austria. They settled into a small farmhouse here and immediately began hosting guests. And that humble start would eventually grow into the quaint yet majestic Von Trapp Lodge and Resort, where Von Trapp's grandchildren continue this legacy today.
And being from Austria, the Von Trapp family felt only one thing from home was missing, and that was the good beer, presumably. So just a quarter mile down the road from their main lodge, they have recently constructed Von Trapp Brewing, which is right behind us, has some, allegedly, of the best Pilsners and European-style lagers around. We're going to go find out.
Legend has it that the youngest of the Von Trapp children, Johannes, began tinkering with brewing his own beer in the basement of the old farmhouse, and by 2010, launched Von Trapp Brewing in earnest. He clearly did something right, because by 2016, Von Trapp had moved into its current home with its 36,000 barrel production and incredibly welcoming beer hall.
Okay, so even if it's the middle of the afternoon, if you would like to eat at the Von Trapp Brewery, make a reservation. Right now they're on I don't even think they kind of just laughed at us when we asked how long for a table of two. However, the bar is open and you can go up there and get a beer. And allegedly, if you find a seat at the bar, you can order food there too. So we might kind of stake out the bar for a little bit, see if we can squeeze in. In the meantime, a Bohemian Pilsner. This is one of the best Bohemian Pilsners I've ever had. It is fantastic. I will be abusing my credit card in the can-to-go area and probably getting at least one more of these. Prost.
With our usual luck, we staked out the bar and managed to score a spot. They were busy, so our food took a minute to arrive, but that was all the better for the chance to try a few more of these beers. It is no wonder these folks clean up at GABF every year. Everything about Von Trapp, incredible. The food, awesome. If I had to pick a favorite brewery from this trip, I think Von Trapp would take it. After lunch, we delved a little deeper into Vermont's mountains to check out another famous New England drive. Smuggler's Notch was named for the route's history as a favorite of the rum runners and sits on a narrow stretch of Route 108 just north of Stowe. Where the KANCAMAGUS highway boasts dramatic and sweeping views, Smuggler's Notch, with its hairpin corridors hemmed by sheer cliffs, massive boulders, and incredibly interesting geology, feels more like a hidden passageway into some secret valley. And for the last pint in Stowe, it was back to the Alchemist to grab as many cans as they would allow me to buy, and it was worth every penny. It was strange and bittersweet after nearly 2 weeks on the road to head into the last leg of our journey, but we could not have asked for a better place to say goodbye to New England than Woodstock, Vermont. The road through the state was dotted with covered bridges, which I don't think I'll ever get tired of crossing, and Woodstock itself feels like a blueprint for every idealized New England postcard town. The village green, the pristine 19th century homes, and the covered bridges all feel curated, but in a way that's lived in rather than staged. Walking the streets with their beautifully kept shops, old inns, quiet side streets, and the Ottauquechee River, which meanders right through town, you sense the city is vibrant and alive, but also somehow unchanged through the generations. The awesome selection of Vermont beer in every fridge also does not hurt. Between the small cafes, the local food, the immaculate public spaces, with their grand Romanesque revival and craftsman gems, Woodstock is a perfect blend of charm, calm, and history, and a manifestation of authentic Vermont character.
Of course, forgot to film while I was in there, but this little roadside farmers market is really cool. They have an awesome beer cooler full of local stuff and an incredible selection of ciders.
As the sun began to set on the final day of our trip, we found that all we wanted to do was get one more good dose of this landscape and beautiful piece of Americana, although I did end up taking a few turns I probably should not have.
All right. Well, we're a little bit off-roading here. This is exactly... Oh, this is great. Okay, we're gonna make it. This is fine.
We made it back to more solid ground, and right off the side of the road, right along the Ottauquechee, spotted a brewery that seemed to be calling my name. Long Trail Brewing feels like that old school brew pub that we all remember from those early days of craft beer. But where so many of these have now modernized their tap rooms or grown into satellites, Long Trail feels like a place that just kept on growing right here, room by room, patio by weirdly connected patio, season after season, until reaching its current form with its wide outdoor decks overlooking the river, garden spaces tucked beneath the trees, and where you can still sense the history of the whole craft beer movement in the walls.
We are now here at Long Trail Brewing Company, just outside of Woodstock. We've been seeing this beer in restaurants, bars, and cafes all over. We had to come to the source. This is their wet hop with some Willamette that the bartender said that they grow right here on property. So this was just pulled off when they harvested the hops in August, I think. That's great. That's really, really good and juicy. This is their classic Riverside lager. I do think we have probably the best seat in the house here, right down by the stream. We've come a long way since Sleepy Hollow. This is our last day in New England. We'll start the drive back tomorrow. If you are out traveling, harkening back to the days of Rip Van Winkle, you don't have the old roadside inn to stay at and chat up all of the random patrons who are spending the night there. Travel has become a little bit more commodified with hotels and stuff, but you still do have good local breweries, bars, and pubs where you can sit down. We've had plenty of random conversations with folks that we've met along the way, found some really good spots from them to try beer, found some great beers along the way, and have a whole carload to bring home and share with you guys. Thanks for following along. We'll see you out there on the trail. That's really good. I gotta get better at narrating too, don't I? got a bunch more cider stuff. Well, I'm back.